Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Jim Nintzel, host of AZ Illustrated Politics, our weekly commentary and analysis of local, state, and national news. On tonight's show, we'll unpack the winners and losers in this year's proposed city budget. We'll also look at how the latest court rulings on campaign finance will affect political races in Arizona and discuss how the Affordable Care Act will play in this year's congressional campaigns. That's all coming up next on AZ Illustrated Politics, but first, a look at today's top stories.
A freshman at the University of Arizona fell to his death early this morning. The University of Arizona Police Department says the young man and another person were climbing a tower on the roof of a campus dorm when one young man fell to the dorm roof. Personnel from the Tucson Fire Department attempted to revive the student, but officials say he was dead when firefighters arrived. The fall is considered an accident at this point. An autopsy is scheduled to determine if drugs or alcohol were factors in the incident. The American Civil Liberties Union is filing suit against the Tucson Police Department over the detention of two people during a traffic stop. The incident took place in October and prompted a protest when the men were taken into custody. Police officers believe the two men were in the United States illegally and the Border Patrol was notified. The car was originally pulled over because it reportedly did not have a light on the license plate. Police officers used pepper spray to break up a crowd of protesters that gathered following the detention of the two men. The suit seeks $250,000 for each person. And the federal government has settled one of the largest environmental cleanup lawsuits in history involving both Arizona uranium mine sites and chemical contamination in Lake Mead, all of that by Anadarko Petroleum. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, author Michael Lewis on high-frequency trading, plus Shields and Brooks on the week's news. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
Tonight on Arizona Week, what does the persistent drought in southern Arizona mean for wildland firefighting crews?
We are looking at the potential for wildfires here this summer. We have the fuels, we'll have the weather conditions, and it will become progressively drier and hotter.
So what we're trying to let people know is one less spark means one less wildfire. And what that's really about is just emphasizing that wildfire prevention is everyone's responsibility.
That's tonight at 8:30 on PBS 6.
Tucson City Manager Richard Miranda recently released a budget blueprint, but City Council members are pushing back against proposed cuts to outside agencies such as the Tucson Pima Arts Council. Here to talk about this year's spending plan and much more, Arizona Education Network President Annie Pedersen, Robert Medler, the Vice President for Government Affairs at the Tucson Metro Chamber, and Arizona Daily Star political reporter Joe Ferguson. Welcome all of you to the AZ Illustrated Political Roundtable. Andy, let's talk about the city budget. I talked to several of the council members this week, and they said that they were happy about the general structure of what the manager had put forth. They like the fact that it's structurally balanced, or moving towards a more structural balance without refinancing debt and stuff like that. But they were unhappy about some of these proposed cuts to some of the outside agencies.
Well, and I think the city council's worked really hard to keep the cuts away from human services, unlike the city of Phoenix, which is making some very different decisions. But there are still some cuts here that have people concerned. Number one, to the Arts Council, as you mentioned, to Access Tucson, which has been served with an eviction notice and told to, clear out, that they're going to be shut down. And also, the council has already approved the increase in Sunshine fares, but you had this week Councilman Kozaczyk coming out with an alternate plan that would make those not quite as high as they are now. And I think that when you've got an economy like ours, which is still struggling, I think that's one of the reasons why the city's revenues are not stronger at this point. Hurting people who are needing public transportation to get to work, to get to school, I do hope they revisit that at the very least.
Robert, you spend a lot of time down at the council chambers watching what goes on there. Your thoughts on this spending plan?
I have to admit, impressed with it. I think not having to raise as many new revenues, I will say the chamber's not really pleased with a 33% increase in the business license fee, and we're going to reach out and talk to them about that. Going from $45 to $60 in 1 year seems a little steep, but making the cuts in places where positions aren't filled right now was a wise, we think was a wise decision. Making the focus strictly on things in the charter, the transportation. When you get to the bus fares, I think Annie has an excellent point. Really the economic development side of that, people needing to get to work. At the same time, SunTran has had a very large, in the tune of over $40 million a year now, subsidy from the city. And it seems to be growing every year. And so bus fares raising helps that, but you also have to look at the economic development side. And I guess maybe really need to look at taking it out of the city budget perhaps, and really look at transportation and mass transit for the city and our region away from the city budget, and really figure out what we need, what's used, what's not used. I mean, $40 million every year going into transit, there's your budget hole right there. And so,
and Joe, what's your takeaways from all of this?
Well, we're seeing a lot of cuts suggested for SunTran, but in the past, this council has passed them and then rolled back and then pushed them back. So just last year, we had large cuts proposed for some SunTran riders, and those got pulled back at the last moment after there was significant public pressure. So I think we're going to see a raise, but it's going to be smaller than that. We've seen a couple of council members say that they'd support a smaller increase for SunTran riders.
And Robert, the arts advocates say that funding for the Tucson Pima Arts Council gives you a solid return on investment because they get matching grants from outside the community and other funds, and people go out to a show, they also go out to eat or drink, and taxes are collected as a result of that. Do you think there's truth to that argument?
I do. Just from personal experience, I think we've all been out and you go to, it doesn't matter what type of event, if you're going to go to something social, a lot of times you go get a drink before, a meal before, or afterwards. And so I think without a doubt there's validity in the argument. It really just comes down to priorities for the city. Is it a core service? Is it absolutely necessary? And that's part of the budget discussion, that debate of where the priority is. It's not that it's not important or not. It's just where is a priority with the city.
And Annie, you mentioned Access Tucson. The manager has proposed cutting all funding for Access Tucson, which is celebrating its 30th year of providing a space for Tucsonans to make their own television shows, and selling that building, which has a studio inside it that is used on a pretty regular basis. They also do a lot of training down there and help people understand how to use this kind of equipment. It seems like council members are at least open to reducing that funding and possibly selling that building off.
Well, I think there needs to be maybe a transition program put into place. So don't cut all funding, don't serve eviction notices, but let's come up with a plan for Access Tucson. There are probably other spaces that would make sense for Access Tucson to move into, and I think there have been some good ideas floated about maybe partnering with Pima and maybe partnering, I think, with some of our local high schools and teaching some of the skills that, it would be helpful for students to learn how to do. I mean, we're in the KUAT studio, which uses the University of Arizona students and teaches them some highly marketable skills. I think the same could be done with Access Tucson, partnering with some of our other educational institutions. And I do think that they provide another voice. And with the commercialization of television, I think independent voices, I think very, very local voices are still highly valuable. And this doesn't even come out of tax dollars. It's a part of a rate fee that cable users pay. So I think, that's not going away. The rate's still going to be there. So what is it going to be put toward? I think there are some other good ideas that are coming out of this, and I hope that we don't see the demise of Access Tucson. I think there's some ways to restructure that would, make it even stronger than it is now.
And you do a program over there.
We do an education program. And again, this isn't something where, I would just hold my iPhone up and tape myself doing this show. It would be very pitiful. There's a very skilled staff down there, and they do an excellent, very professional job. And then we are able to get those videos out on YouTube to an even wider audience. So they do provide a very valuable service.
And Joe, let's talk about these congressional campaigns going on. We saw a lot of action this week. It does seem early for all of this campaign action to be taking place, but we are seeing the campaign starting earlier and earlier. In Washington this week, the Republican House leadership released the latest version of Paul Ryan's budget plans, and the Democrats really pounced on that, used it as fodder for an advertisement against Martha McSally rally in Congressional District 2, where she's running against Ron Barber, and then all three of the Republicans are in a primary against Ann Kirkpatrick in Congressional District 1. This DCCC ad, tell us a little bit about what that's all about.
The CCC ad tried to pounce on the Ryan budget as soon as it was released and tried to market it by tying the four candidates back to Ryan, even though there was no real announcement by any of the candidates that they'd support the new Ryan bill. Many of them hadn't even seen it yet, but still they wanted to try to tie them to a budget that Ryan was floating that could be unpopular politically for members of our community.
And Eve, given that these Republicans are challengers, is it fair to tie them to the Ryan budget right out the gate like this?
Well, until they say that they're not for it, you have Martha McSally, who was given the chance by Joe to basically, say, I don't support this budget, and rather than saying that, she chose to say nothing. So I think the implication is, well, if you're not going to come out against it, then we assume that you are for it. And she has voted, or not voted, but she has said that she would have voted for the prior Paul Ryan budget. So I do think it's fair. I watched the ad. I don't think it's a particularly good ad, frankly, but I think what they're saying at the very end is, candidate McSally, stick up for the middle class. So I didn't find it to be misleading, but I think it does show that we are going to be seeing these ads. I mean, from now until Election Day, they are going to be endless. And I do think that the Paul Ryan budget, it is a strange thing, I think, that this was introduced at this time. He's proposing that the Affordable Care Act be eliminated at the same time that we are now hearing that enrollment has been a huge success. So I think the timing of his budget has given the Democrats something to seize on, and seize on it they are.
I do want to talk about the Affordable Care Act because we saw some ads regarding that too, but I wanted to ask Robert first if you think it is early for the Republicans or Democrats to be going after the Republicans challengers on a budget that was just released this week?
I do. I think it's early for everything, to be honest. The basketball term's not even over yet, and you've got people sending out attack ads. So that's always concerning to me, but they're not elected yet. No one had a chance to look at it. Joe's point's absolutely correct, and yet you're going to roll it up and hang around someone's neck. I mean, how does that play with the general public of it really just stereotypes a candidate based on the party instead of their individual ideas and what they're running for and their own ideas. You're taking a congressman from Wisconsin who is powerful and influential in D.C., but without having a chance to read it, how can you say that person's for or against it?
Let me ask you about Ron Barber in particular, because we had Leah Marquez Pedersen on from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce on the show in the past, and she says that Congressman Barber has been making efforts to work with the business community from her perspective. And I know the Metro Chamber has had disagreements with Congressman Barber over the Rosemont mine, but in general, what's the Chamber's view of how Congressman Barber is doing his job?
We've had a good relationship with Congressman Barber. His office reaches out to me bi-weekly probably on different issues, just wanting to know where we are, the temperature of the business community. And really the place where we've had the greatest success with him and his office has been working on the military issues, the DOD, Davis-Monthan, Fort Huachuca, the F-35, helping the 162nd Air Guard Unit. That's really where Congressman Barber has been a big help to us. He's got us meetings in DCs for people who made trips back. So in that sense, he's been a very, very good congressman for us.
And Joe, yesterday you had local Latino leaders criticize an ad that is sponsored by something called the Libre Initiative. Well, what is this group and what is this ad all about, and why are these Latino leaders criticizing it?
Well, the Libre group says that they're speaking for Hispanics, saying that they want to provide more economic opportunities for Latinos to increase their value and their role in the community. And they're primarily funded by the Koch brothers. So they've been active in 8 states. They've now expanded their reach to 10 states. And they just put out an ad. They're saying they're going to spend $700,000 on focusing on the Affordable Care Act. So this group has put it out and said, we speak for them. And that drew a very sharp reaction from Democrats who saw this as an attack against Ann Kirkpatrick and Ron Barber.
And Eve, your take on this one?
Well, I think that they are using a very misleading figure when they're attacking the Affordable Care Act, and this goes back to the Congressional Budget Office's report that people were going to leave jobs because they now have health insurance. And so that has now been spun by the Koch brothers and their affiliates to say that somehow this is going to hurt the economy. These are jobs lost. That's not accurate. These are jobs that people are not going to remain in. They may go start their own business now because they have health insurance. So I think the Koch brothers are up to their usual, it's more than mischief, but we'll just call it mischief, and they're presenting some misleading information to voters. And I do think it's interesting that they are targeting Latino voters with this faux Latino group. And I hope that there are some counters to this. People exposing, Joe's article was excellent, but I hope that some of the candidates or some of the other groups can get out there and expose this group for what it really is, which is, it's AstroTurf. These are not, grassroots Latino advocates here. These are the Koch brothers posing as such.
And Robert, we did have the news this week that more than 7 million people had signed up for insurance for these exchanges across the country as of this week's deadline to do so for this year. And I'm curious about just how the business community is responding to the Affordable Care Act in general from what you're hearing from your members about it.
Right. Well, the news with the 7.1 million, just today, 3 million, it was announced 3 million more people signed up on Medicare. Same. So on that side, it's been a success as well. I think when you get to the business community, it really goes to personal politics. Democratic business owners generally feel one way, and Republican business owners generally feel another way. But I think where it bridges that divide is the unknown. It's a double-edged sword so far. This year, it increased to 50% for the small business tax credit for the portion of the premiums that small business owners pay. So that has been an increase. So that means small business owners are going to be getting more money back. At the same time, the healthcare income tax is estimated to cost small and medium-sized businesses $145 billion over the next 10 years. And so I think a lot of businesses are just still unsure of how it's going to affect their business, and also the rules and regulations. So many deadlines have been pushed, bumped 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Things are changed at the last minute, that it's just an environment of being unsure for people wanting to operate within the confines of the law.
And this mandate that businesses insure their employers if they're, more than 50 employees,
Correct.
has been put off for a year. And that was
Correct.
probably a relief to a lot of businesses.
Absolutely.
But there's probably still concern on their part that they're going to have to start providing insurance benefits.
Absolutely. Having it put off an extra year, I think, helped. At the same time, the people who were still concerned about that, I think, are still going to be concerned about it after a year. They're looking at their growth projections, their revenue growth, and whether they're going to be able to go over that 50 or are they close to it. And you get conflicting information, honestly. You get a lot of businesses or studies that say this is going to impact numerous businesses across the country. At the same time, you have other studies that say it's going to impact very few businesses that are right in that realm. And so I think across the board, when you get to business and the healthcare, there's just so many unknowns. The uncertainty is really what's causing business owners to be hesitant, and also investors.
And any of your thoughts of how this is playing out so far?
Well, I think, there was a lot of doom and gloom, sort of Chicken Little, sky is falling predictions when there were glitches with the website. I think what we're seeing now is that it was not a smooth rollout, but that it has been embraced by members of the public. And I think it will help definitely, certain businesses, certain industries that have had, just even the hospital industry. Look in Arizona with the Medicaid expansion, how that has helped the hospital industry here. I think the Republicans were counting on being able to run against the Affordable Care Act. I think they're still trying to in some ways, like the Koch brother ad illustrates. They're going to try and misconstrue the facts. The Democrats, to some extent, have run away from the Affordable Care Act up until now. And I would expect and I would hope that we start seeing more real-life stories of how this is actually affecting real people who did not have health care coverage before, who were denied it because of pre-existing conditions. This creates a lot of stability for members of our community, and just a basic, right to not have to suffer, unnecessarily. And so I think that it will be a positive. I don't think it's going to be the negative that everyone was predicting for the upcoming election cycle.
And we will see this at the centerpiece of a lot of this campaigning this year, Joe.
We probably expect more ads on this subject. We saw the RNC release something today that was also focused again on the Affordable Care Act. So we're going to see more ads.
And all this early advertising costs a lot of money. That brings us to the topic of campaign financing. And this week, the U.S. Supreme Court threw out a limit on the aggregate amount and any one individual could give to a politician. There are still limits on how much a politician can accept from an individual, but you can spread as much money around as you'd like. Annie, what did you think of this ruling?
Well, I thought it was unfortunate. I mean, I think that we were very disturbed with the Citizens United ruling. This really, if Justice Breyer said, if that opened the door, this opens the floodgates for the billionaires, for very large corporate donors to really buy elections in our country, and that is not what the American public wants. If you poll people, if you put citizens' initiatives in front of people to restrict the power and role of money in politics, that's what they want. And I fear that this is going to have a corrupting influence in our democracy. I think that anytime you, well, let's just look. When were these restrictions put into place? They were put into place after Watergate. They were put into place in Arizona after the AZPM debacle here. And I think when you just allow unbridled flow of money, we know that it does not have a positive influence in our democracy. The evidence of the Koch brothers and how they're already using their billions to direct American policy to their vision, not to the vision of American people, but to these two brothers and what they think is best for our country. That's not what our democracy is about at all. And I do worry that people are going to lose hope and lose faith that it is not one person, one vote anymore. So I am worried about this. I think that there will be repercussions. I think we better have more Capitol coverage from the Star and the Republic. That's all I can say, because I think there'll be some things to ferret out up there.
What do you think, Robert?
I'm more concerned with the elections in Arizona for the State House and the State Senate, and with this year, the statewide races. Being able to support the candidates from a business standpoint that we think are going to set up the right regulatory environment, and that means a lot of different things, from everything from education to taxes and a lot in between. But who can we get up at the State House and Senate that will best represent and make the climate for business what we're vested in? So being able to have, whether it's business community members or private citizens who are retired, be able to contribute to the candidate they want to see elected, it will help. We have clean elections here. I did a little, 88 people so far have signed up for clean elections this year. In 2010, it was well over 125. 2008, it was over 150 people. When you do the math of who won and who lost, I mean, it's millions of dollars in clean elections that is going to candidates who lose, who are on the fringe. One district in Tucson, if I remember, it was District 28 in 2008, had 8 people in a single primary.
And I want to talk about clean elections in a second, but Joe, we also had the Arizona Supreme Court explain a ruling that they made back in December that said it was okay to increase the amount of money that individuals could contribute, and these new limits went from a few $100s to a few thousand.
Sure, and this now allows anybody to give up to $4,000 in the primary and the general to any state candidate, and this is going to change how people raise money in this state. It's a new cycle, but given the outside expenditure groups and super PACs who are focusing in Arizona, this could level the playing field for some, allowing them to raise more money than they have in the past.
And Robert, is there some concern among some members of the business community that they're going to have to shell out a lot more money out to these candidates? I mean, they were getting off kind of cheap with $400, now it's $4,000. That's a big jump.
No, and I think absolutely there are people who are already saying they're getting the calls asking for the max check. We don't have that type of wealth here in general, and I think people aren't happy with the product. You look at some of the debacles in the last few years at the state legislature, and do people really want to spend that much of their own money in an election? I don't think you'll see a lot of people maxing out with state candidates.
And Eve, how do you think it's going to just impact the way campaigns are done here in the state of Arizona?
Well, I mean, I think that we are going to have a lot of, people, I want to say buying influence, buying seats. Both of these decisions combined, both the Arizona Supreme Court decision and the U.S. Supreme Court decision, I think are going to mean a lot more money, obviously, being spent here. So, I mean, who's really benefiting here? You know, the campaign consultants, the media companies, there's going to be a huge infusion for them. But in terms of the level of public trust in the democratic process, I think that's going to be put at risk by what's happened here.
And Robert mentioned clean elections and fewer candidates using that. Do you think people are still going to see that as a viable campaign route?
I think some still do. I mean, it's interesting. There's some statewide candidates. Ken Bennett, Secretary of State, who's running for governor, who is using clean elections. Superintendent of Public Instruction, John Huppenthal, is using clean elections. But there's always the possibility, as has happened in the past, of an independent expenditure coming in and then basically supplementing their runs with the help of some outside money. So there are candidates who are still using it and find it to be a viable means, but once the Supreme Court really took away the matching funds piece of it, this exact same lineup of the Supreme Court, that was also a 5-4 decision. I think it really weakened clean elections, dramatically. And now with the reason that clean elections was passed was to try and diffuse and dilute the influence of money in politics. And since clean elections was passed, it has been basically eviscerated, I think, by the courts, in essence. The Arizona Supreme Court decision that came down on campaign limits, there was a very strong argument that clean elections, voter approved, actually did not allow those increases to take place, and that voter protection laws, also passed by citizens the same year, locked those into place. 3 justices just didn't go along with that argument. So I think the courts have not been helpful in terms of campaign finance, obviously, and I don't know that clean elections is serving the purpose at all that voters had intended.
Joe, you've got to see like Fred Duvall and Felicia Rodolini, who are running for governor and attorney general on the Democratic slate, are raising money privately and are expected to raise over $1 million. And then Terry Goddard, running for Secretary of State, is going with clean elections. And will he have enough money to run a viable campaign, especially if he goes up against a Will Cardin who can spend millions of dollars of his own money?
Well, I mean, Terry Goddard has some name recognition in the state, being how active he's been in Arizona politics for the last decade. So it's possible, but he doesn't need the same kind of money for that name ID. But at the same time, running a statewide election on a crippled system, it's going to be a tough race for him.
All right, and we're down to about 20 seconds here, but I guess they're still working out a budget plan up at the state legislature. Robert, prediction, you think they're going to have a budget by the end of this next week?
Yes, I do. I think they'll have it probably Monday or Tuesday go through.
Okay, and that's going to be all we have time for here today. I'd like to thank you guys for coming by and talking about all this stuff. We will be right back with some closing thoughts. That's our show for today, but you can learn more about politics by visiting news.azpm.org or by following us on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Jim Nintzel. Thanks for watching another edition of AZ Illustrated Politics.